bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-ba-dum. Hi friends, bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-ba-dum. Hi, friends. Good evening. It's Monday night, and we do what we do every Monday night. We meet and we talk about one thing and one thing only. So my name is Joette Calabrese, and for those of you who are new, you can learn as much as you would like to learn here every Monday at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And for those of you who are not so new and have been around for a while, welcome, friends. It's great to see you. I love seeing you all come in. It's really fun. Fernicia and San Diego gal and Diane from Wisconsin. Tell me where you're from, everyone. I love to hear it. It's really fun. Grand Rapids, and where else do we have? Dolly from PA, and Lori from Byron Center, Michigan. Kathy from Northern Atlanta and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Vermont. And hi, Susie B. little flower. Hi, Susie. Great to see you. Angela from Oklahoma. And here we have Barb from Ontario, Grafton, Ontario. My husband and I just went to dinner in, where did we go? Perry, where were we? We just had dinner. What was it?
I can't remember.
Yeah, we can't remember it. Yeah, Fonthill, Ontario. Great little restaurant up there that we'd heard about years ago and went a couple times and decided to go back again. And so, yeah, Oklahoma. Hi from near Toledo, Ohio, says Jane. Great to see everyone from Illinois and New York City and San Francisco. Diana, wonderful to see you all. Hello, friends. It's great to see you. We've got an interesting subject tonight, ADHD. And I have to say that we always thought, of course, that it was only children, but of course adults could have ADHD. It can afflict anyone. But I also, one other thing that I want to add to this, and that is that I think, just my observation, my friends, that there are times, I just have a note here, I should move that just in case it vibrates on the microphone, that it seems as though that people want a diagnosis more than perhaps even a diagnosis might be needed. And so the reason I say that is because I think we often too readily look to so-called experts to determine whether or not we have something or not, whether or not we have something. Now, it certainly is important if you've got tremendous pain in your arm and you're considering the possibility that it could be a fracture, that you find out if it's a fracture. That's a diagnosis that is worthy of your time and attention. Psychological conditions, I'm not that impressed with. And so I find that too easily we we acquiesce, we agree to being tested when it might not be a very good plan to do that. And it's not so much for us as adults as much as it is for our children. So when people tell me they're going to have their child tested for a psychological an evaluation, I say, you sure you want that? You sure you want something regarding your child's psyche, not only evaluated by strangers who have no skin in the game? You're the one who has skin in the game, and so does your child. You sure you want your child evaluated and then have it written up and then have it follow your child throughout his or her educational career? You sure about that? How important is it that you get that evaluation? How important is it that you have someone else tell you what's wrong? So
therein lies the aspect of this kind of homeopathy in general, but specifically this kind of homeopathy where we can learn to treat our families ourselves. And we needn't have a diagnosis for something like this. So if there's an attention deficit disorder, and we see that someone can't pay attention, and there are no other reasons that could be considered, like, she just can't pay attention in school. Could it be that maybe she had cereal with soy milk for breakfast? Or pancakes with, I don't know, skim milk and orange juice? Could it be that she can't concentrate because her blood sugar's going crazy? Could it be that he didn't get enough of the proper sleep last night? Or that he's in front of a screen all day? Now, I have no right to talk about being in front of screens all day because that's basically what I do. Now, my husband and I do go for walks, and I do my own housework, and for the most part, and so I move, but it's not generally through the day. Generally through the day, I'm working on teaching and writing and planning these kinds of events. But children need to move, and boys need to be boys. And what do I mean by that? We don't want boys acting like girls. And we have a very feminine school setting where boys can barely sit still because that's the way boys generally are. But the school does not really like that because it's too much disruption. So oftentimes it is suggested to the parents that the child be evaluated. And all I can say is do whatever you can to keep that from happening. Okay? Can I say that? Or if you absolutely must, and think about that long and hard, have the child evaluated elsewhere, not related to the school, so that, especially if it's a public school, government school, you don't want that information following your child. Phyllis says the evaluations are all geared to matching attributes to drugs. Let me also say, parenthetically, my friends, I urge you to not go to your doctor and say you have anxiety. Don't let your child say they have anxiety. Don't ever admit that. I'm sorry to say that. There are a lot of good doctors out there, but not enough. Because the moment you say you have anxiety, out comes the script and in comes the psychotropic drugs. And once someone, whether it's a child or an adult, is on those psychotropic drugs, they can go on for years and years and years and years, sometimes decades. And what that does to the brain, well, we can see what it does by behaviors and people who are not able to grow up, especially if they started on these drugs early. You can see that they are behind emotionally and maybe not intellectually, but emotionally. They are behind because it seems to me what I observe is a stunted emotional growth where full-grown women act more like children and full-grown men. It's more often women who get these drugs, by the way. The boys get them when they're young, the girls get them when they're teens and then carry through. So, my friends, I urge you to reconsider testing, which is why we love Mr. Google. We love AI. Find out, do these symptoms stack up to describe ADHD? That's good enough, isn't it? I mean, that even might be something we have to be concerned about too, right? So, and then if that's so, we're going to talk about it today, okay? Completely agree. That is the path we took for our own. Fought the system, best decision. Yeah, thank you, Sue from San Diego. You're absolutely right. Or just step out of the system completely. Maybe your child shouldn't even be in a school. Maybe that child should be homeschooled. So, all right, now let's look at this. If we look at ADHD, and I look at, see, the Meta Repertory, 4th edition by Robin Murphy, and we go to the mind section, for those of you who have this information, have this book, I'm on page 31, and I look under attention deficit disorder, which of course in parentheses also says hyperactivity. They're very closely related. Not exactly. One can just be very hyperactive and still have good attention, while the other cannot pay attention, but they often come together. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 8, about 40 remedies here from which to choose. The most important ones are carcinosin, metarhinum, lycopodium, mercurius, and stramonium. And so these medicines are something we can consider, but the secondary, those are the top medicines. We can also look at anacardium, androc, arsenicum, aspartame, calc-phos, cinna, ignatia. I'm just reading these to you because they're all secondary remedies and they can still have some value. Nux vomica, Ritalin, homeopathic Ritalin, my friends. Yes, Ritalin. Tarantula, yes, and Thuya. And so there you have a number of homeopathic medicines that can be considered for ADHD. So I'm going to point it out to you. I've got a little asterisk next to it so that you can see that rubric. It's right there at my middle finger. If you can see that little asterisk there. Attention deficit disorder, right there. Now, we got a lot of remedies from which to choose. Actually, that's not a real lot. Sometimes we have in a rubric 50, 100, sometimes 200 medicines from which to choose. So now we're going to go to, this is one of the reasons that I love practical homeopathy. That includes protocols. The Banerjee protocols, Joepathy protocols, French protocols, protocols that I've learned through the years that other homeopaths know about, but don't admit using. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be condescending, and I'm not condescending at all, because I was in that boat. That boat was, I used to be classical, and I didn't believe in protocols, except that the ones that I used. The ones that I used, I thought, oh, well, those are the outliers, like the protocol for a head injury or something. That's an outlier. That's we don't use protocols for other things because that is just too precise, not esoteric enough. I'm being really facetious right now. I'm really sorry. Alrighty. So now we're going to look at attention deficit disorder that the Banerjees give us. This is a Banerjee protocol. Now, it's not the only time we use this, but if you have studied with me in any of my classes, in my academy, you know that my general suggestion is that if we have a specific protocol for a specific condition, it would behoove us to use that, to start with that. Why? Well, if we're using a Banerjee protocol, the Banerjees have told us clearly that about 80 to 85% of those people who have that condition, whatever that condition might be, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis or high blood pressure or ADHD or eczema, whatever it might be, that if we use that protocol, about 80 to 85% of people who have that will find some improvement. Doesn't mean it'll take it all the way, but it'll find some improvement. So it's a very, very good place to start. 80 to 85%, my friends, can't beat that. It's a pretty high number. Those are really great odds that if you use the protocol, you might see some really good shifts. Okay. I also want to say before I discuss this Banerjee protocol for ADHD, I want to tell you that a lot of times, including from me myself, that I have perhaps if I have I apologize, but I perhaps have indicated that when you use the medicine once or twice and then that's it, and it's done, it's over with. There's no more. The condition is gone. Now, the reason that happens is because we homeopaths, love to tell the stories about those people who have suffered horribly and who have had a shift in their condition that was quite dramatic with only a dose or two or maybe, a couple weeks worth. Those are what we like to hang our hats on. Those are the stories that make us the most happy. But I also want to point out that when I teach these courses, whether it's in my Gateway study guide or it's in my classes, the Mindful Homeopathy, which you can read more on in greater depth there on all of these kinds of psychological conditions. In Mindful Homeopathy, I teach that you usually, for a chronic condition, we usually give it 6 to 8 weeks of using the medicine. And yes, it is repeated. Oh, I know that's blasphemous in certain corners of the world, but those corners, I'm going to say, my friends, are getting smaller and smaller and smaller because more and more people are latching onto this method of using these medicines more frequently, just as the protocols call for. We don't just willy-nilly use medicines frequently. We follow specific formulaic protocols. So, I don't want to lose my train of thought. Let's get back to attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder. It can be one or the other, I suppose, but I see them as there's a slight difference. One is attention deficit where somebody can't pay attention, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're hyperactive. More often it is, but it doesn't have to be. So the first medicine that we think of is Adhd. A-E-T-H-U-S-A, Adhd. A-E-T-H-U-S-A. And there's a second word, Synapium, C-Y-N-A-P-I-U-M, Adhd Synapium. It's used in a 200C, my friends. And it's every 3 days. 1 dose every 3 days. Now, someone is sure to say, yes, but my child has really serious ADHD. Can't I give it every day? And the answer is no. Not if you're following a protocol, because the protocol doesn't say every day. It doesn't say you have a choice. What the protocol indicates is that it's every 3rd day. And why would we stick to it? Let me harken back to what I just finished saying, because in 80 to 85% of cases that have ADHD using this particular medicine, there is a response. Now, the response is not to willy-nilly frequency. The response is not to, oh, gee, I think I know better because it's my child modality. No, it is based on a specific protocol for a specific condition in a certain method. So if you want, my friends, to see the kind of response that I'm accustomed to seeing, that the Banerjees have seen, that I've seen the first time I went to the Banerjees was in 2012. And what I observed there and what I saw in subsequent years of going there and then using these medicines, these methods for my clients and then teaching them and then my students responding back again indicates to me that this is just right. Now, when I say that a case has to be followed through or the remedy needs to be used for 6 to 8 weeks, that gives us enough time for the medicine to act. It doesn't work the next day for everyone. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you see a shift within a day. Sometimes you see that child calm down within maybe that night. But we continue with the medicine until we see enough of a shift that is dramatic enough that we can say, you know what, I think we're done. Remember, I'm going to remind you again, my friends, these are not supplements. These are not vitamins, not essential oils. This is medicine. And because it's medicine, it requires that we understand how to utilize it properly. How is it utilized properly? When the condition is resolved, or at least 90% resolved, we halt the use of the medicine. We do not carry on. We don't carry on the way you would with a vitamin or a supplement. We don't do that. We halt the use right then and there. Then, if the condition starts to present itself again at a later date, I don't know, a month later after having halted, and we see that it is reestablishing itself, not at that very moment. No fear, don't worry. Oh no, it's coming back forevermore, and now we're really going to be in trouble. No, you stay with the same idea and you hold off and you wait until it is fully established. Then, when you see it a few days, okay, it looks like it's coming back again. Now we resume the medicine. Okay, friends, there are 2 medicines that are used for ADHD that the Banerjees taught me and have taught many others. The second one is stramonium 6C, and that's given twice daily. Now, we don't give these medicines at the same moment, remedy and then remedy. We separate them, 15 minutes, half an hour, something like that. So when you're giving the Adhd, 1 dose every 3rd day, when you give that medicine, about 15 minutes later, you can give the stramonium. But the stramonium is being given twice a day, every day. All right, let's see what people are talking about. Let's see. I homeschool under a private school umbrella. Yes, Susie B. Yep. No tests or evaluations required by a school district. Freedom. It's called Florida Unschoolers. Nicely done. Yeah, we did the same thing. I called our homeschool group Colden Homeschool Group. And it was so funny because we would go to, say, the Philharmonic Orchestra during their rehearsals, and we would, all the schools were all in there watching the rehearsals of the Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra, and then they would call the school by name, and they'd have to get up and get to their bus. Well, we didn't have a bus. I was just my 3 sons and me, and they would call Colden Homeschool, and the 4 of us would get up, leave our seats, walk to the back of the auditorium of Kleinhans Music Hall, and then load into our car. It's so much fun. What if you have a child on a prescription for ADHD and you're trying to work them off of it, but you want to start a protocol? How do you know if it is really working? Well, you're right. That is a difficult thing to know. You're right. But my question is the medication, the conventional drug, acting? Is it helping? Because if the child is now calm, you're right, you would not know. It would be difficult to know, and that is a bone of contention from using drugs. But it has been done, and it's done all the time. People are on conventional drugs regardless of the condition, and then take in the homeopathy. You're absolutely right. You would have to titrate with the aid of, hopefully, preferably with a doctor. But unfortunately, doctors don't titrate drugs. They increase their usage, most likely. Is stramonium used for schizophrenia? It can be. Yes, it can be. All right, let's see. People are praying for each other. Somebody must be in trouble. I currently do that for my 2 sons, says Michelle. Okay. Let's see. Yes, Bernie, you're talking to each other. It's so good. Sorry, Michelle. That's okay. People are communicating. Let's see if we have any questions here. Yes, when we follow a protocol, we don't question it. If there are choices within a protocol, then we try to differentiate between degrees. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. That's well said. Let's see. Yes, Carrie, you use the exact protocol. So everyone's helping each other, which is just lovely. Glad to see this. My adult child took Adderall for years. Then she quit taking the drug. I learned about homeopathy. Nice job, Jerry. Nice job. Adderall, that's the one that's most often prescribed. Yep. We learn. We learn as we go. My friends, don't ever... Listen, we all have guilt. It's kind of the human state, isn't it? Especially when we have children. We all think of things that we could have done better. And the reason that we're all here tonight, or you're in my study groups, my gateway groups, or Joette's Mighty members, or the academy, wherever you're studying in our little community, you will feel often that, oh my gosh, did I blow it? Did I ruin that? Why did I let that doctor talk me into this? Why didn't I know that? Why didn't I research this? Well, we all say the same thing. And people don't come skipping into homeopathy. People come crawling into homeopathy. They have given everything else its complete due and tried and tried and tried. Now, would these work on adults too? Yes, Emily, they would. I just use a child as an example. Yes, it makes no difference whether it's an adult or a child. Okay, Tiff says bipolar disorder, autism, and schizophrenia are often prescribed the same conventional medications, antipsychotics. Some people believe ADHD is on the spectrum. It does not surprise me that a homeopathic ADHD medication also works for schizophrenia. Yes. Adhd helps with dairy sensitivity. Thank you, Carol. That's absolutely so. So oversensitivity to dairy. Now look, I think for most people, my friends, have difficulty with dairy. Now, not all dairy. There are certain cheeses, aged cheeses that are not so difficult. Butter is certainly, for most people, is more than acceptable. But most people do have problems with dairy. But if the dairy is needed, or it's let's say, how shall we say, very sensitive, then person is very sensitive to it, that Adhd can be very useful for that. So if we have a dairy intolerance and ADHD, wow, we have a beautiful picture here, haven't we? All right. Let's see what else we've got. Any other questions? So true, says Tina, I was broke and sick when I found homeopathy. That's how we usually end up, because we've spent all our money and all our time on the wrong paradigm. Isn't that the truth? Gloria wants to know, what were the daughter's symptoms, and is homeopathy working? Okay. They're buying. I guess you're buying. It's a great, okay, you're talking probably about Robin Murphy's repertory, or maybe the Banerjee protocol. Nephew had chickenpox as an infant only on his head, and my sister thinks he got ADHD and Tourette's from the chickenpox affecting his brain. What say you? Well, diseases can cause long-term repercussions. But the way that I often think about it is that, are we sure it's the disease that caused it, or was it the treatment of the disease? What was given to that child during that disease? Now, if nothing was given, then okay, we accept that it could have been the actual disease that caused it. But I can't tell you the number of people who say, I've never been well since I had pneumonia. And I say, so what were you given for the pneumonia? Oh, antibiotics. Oh, there you go. That could be the reason why the problems are now related to your gut. So do consider that it's not necessarily the disease, the condition, but rather the treatment of it. Now look up what drugs were used, and do those drugs cause? That's the way you want to find out. I'm sorry, friends. I am so disturbed by the amount of psychotropic drugs and other drugs that are handed out like candy, that I find myself noticing, like when you buy a Volkswagen, you notice everyone else buying one or driving one. I can't help, once you get this information in your head that these drugs are dangerous, they rarely are without side effects. It's just that perhaps you didn't notice them. You expected the side effect to happen right away. And you didn't realize that after 5 years of taking this particular drug, whatever it might have been, could even have been antibiotics, because after the pneumonia came the urinary tract infection. And after that one came a secondary and a tertiary one. And then after that came conjunctivitis. And then after that came, and then. And now the person can't eat. They can't have dairy. They can't have a slice of bread. They're anxious all the time. They're overweight. They have anxiety attacks. What do you know? You change the gut with antibiotics for every little thing, and that's what happens. Yes, Jordan Peterson dealing with issue regarding these types of drugs. Jordan Peterson is suffering horribly. Yes. Would trouble with reading and writing in 6-7-year-olds have to do with ADHD? Well, it depends. My husband and I were very involved in the Waldorf school many years ago for our oldest child, and they discourage reading and writing until 7 years old, until the milk teeth are gone, or at least have started to let go. So they believe that that is the time, just around 7 years old, that they should be able to start doing that. And up until that time, it should be creative play and many other issues, or not many other activities, I should say. So I don't know. One of my sons was not interested in reading or writing till he was about 8. And then when we were homeschooling, we'd have to go to the library twice a week because he was borrowing books from the library, sometimes 6-7 books at a time, and he would read them in 4 days. So when it hits, sometimes it really hits. And he's still a very avid reader to this day, close to 40 years old. Won't you sing some Michael Jackson? Let's see. Thank you very much, B. Silva. Thank you. Relying, let's see, of course, but checks. Okay. People are helping each other. I love it. I love it. Let's see what else we've got here. We're going to go to Mighty's in just about a half a minute, my Joette's Mighty members, and I'll answer more questions. Let's see. Essential oil hospitals don't exist, but homeopathic hospitals do. Oh, yeah, essential oil hospitals didn't exist. That's right, says Melissa. Bovista daily for gluten? Yeah, well, yes, it can be used daily or every other day. Yes, it can be used. Absolutely. Occupational therapy can be helpful. I think that's right, Shanna, if you're talking about ADHD or those kinds of conditions, but be careful if occupational therapy is coming through your school. Be careful, friends. How much do you want your public school, your state government, to know about your child's psychological issues? Think about that. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Whoever takes medicine, conventional drugs, must recover twice. Once from the ailment and once from the medicine. Thank you very much. It's one of my favorite quotes. My dad read to and with us all the time, even before we could read, which helped us without our even being aware it was helping us. Yeah, let me just say something. For children who are not reading, yes, get books on tapes, or that's the old way. Get classics that are beyond their years. Read to them. Read Moby Dick. Read Laura Ingalls Wilder. Read to your children, and they will develop a vocabulary without your even recognizing it. All right, we're going to go to Mighty's Plus. Tonight is Joette's Mighty Plus. Meet up if you haven't experienced the benefits of the community there and the information shared. Thank you very much, Fernisha, for saying. Thank you. All righty. Yeah, we're going to go right into Mighty's Plus.